Yo, 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 what is going on, RoK Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today I wanted to talk about something that, yet again, I find extremely important, which is MGE. Right, we're going to be talking about the Mightiest Governor event today, but specifically, we're going to be touching on realistic expectations. Why is it that the event is geared towards favoring of specific types of individuals, why it disfavors certain types of play, and why at the end of the day you do not want MGE to run you, you want to run MGE. And we're going to really explain why, because I can almost guarantee that the majority of players and kingdoms out there are getting suckered by MGE. You are just letting MGE play you like a fiddle. And you really need to take control of MGE in order to not only kind of stick it to the man, but to really make the most out of it. And I'm going to do a deep dive and explain why, hopefully in the most simplest of ways and terms, on how you can min-max MGE in your favor. Before we really start diving into everything, as always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you sub, like, ring the notification bell. And of course, if you want to join and be a part of our conversation, hit up the Discord. You can find a link to that in the pinned comment description right down below. Okay, let me get some water. Let me first start off by us defining what is MGE. So MGE is the, as we said, the Mightiest Governor event, right? This is an event where you find the strongest governors in the kingdom. You have a special event that will be held very soon. The event it will include 6 stages, and all participating governors will receive abundant rewards. Now, the thing about MGE, right, is that once upon a time, it actually used to just be 5 stages, right? You had train troops, defeat barbarians, gather resources, increase power, and then you had a kill event at the end. Now, they have 6 stages. So you have troops training, barbs, resource gathering, power upgrade, and then you have enemy elimination, which is your KE for 5. And then they added this 6th one, which is final sprint. And this is where all previous stages combine, giving points, but kind of at for a lower rate, right? So it's basically all 5 combined. You can do any of them that you want, and you'll get points, just not at the full max value. Now, let me specifically explain this, right? So you get stage rewards, meaning that for each of these stages, you get rewards for those. Then you also get end of event rewards, which in short are what the commanders are, right? That's kind of the bulk of it, really, that players look for, because these are commanders that are, for the most part, not readily available, unless they end up coming up in card game eventually that you're going to be able to get them from, right? If you're kind of looking at it from a free-to-play approach more specifically, even though it really would be available to anyone, obviously pending the time that they would arrive. But this is what you're looking, right? That's why commanders in MGE are pretty much, for the most part, right? I mean, there are some exceptions, but you're really looking to do well in this event in order to get commanders that are not as readily available that early, so that way you can use them in your pairings and your compositions going into KVKs. But this is why MGE is just a money-sucking, drying event. The event is designed to sucker you. It's designed to make you spend money, spend resources more than you normally would, get as many players involved, and really ultimately give free-to-play just false hope. And I say that generally. Obviously, if you're a free-to-play and you just stock up resources for months or a year, I have no doubt in my mind that you could probably decently place well in an MGE, right? Again, I've seen that happen. But it is not the most efficient nor effective use of your time, effort, and resources to invest in an MGE as a free-to-play. But before I really start diving into that, the specific takeaway here is that the event is meant to make you spend and use more resources and money than you really should be using for an event. This is how you have to look at MGE. The event is basically like, think about if no one participated in the event, and then you had 10 to 20 people that participated at the very end. And let's just say in this extreme scenario, each of them scored 100 points. Everyone in the kingdom did not participate, and everyone was at 0. This is obviously impossible, but you can get close, so in this example. And then you had 10 to 20 people that scored 100 points. You would have those 10 to 20 people be able to get all these resources and commander sculptures pretty much for free without having to spend a single dollar, barely having to invest any resources, and definitely not wasting or over-investing resources, and you were able to get over on the game. And this does not, I'm not necessarily saying this in a mean or an ill-intended way, but it really highlights the point of understanding what MGE is and how you can most effectively take advantage of the event, right? If the purpose of the event is, for the most part, for you to get players commander sculptures so they can use them to do rally leading, to be defensive garrison captains, or just defending rallies, if you can get some people eventually commanders that could just be good use in open field, right? Then the logic behind it should be, how can we get the most out of the event for the littlest investment? This is where you start getting into the realm of fixed, free-for-all, semi-fixed style events in MGE. And I'm gonna break down why you have kingdoms that will run and do events in these types of ways. So free-for-all pretty much is just straightforward, right? It is what it is. Anyone can do whatever they want, go as hard as they want. Semi-fixed is where you might have specific events that are fixed. You might have partial placements that are fixed, but not everything. A full fixed event means that you're having whatever it is, the 15, 20 people, right? Excuse me for just not knowing the immediate numbers right now, but you have a fixed amount of positions for ones that would get paid out the sculptures at the end of the event. Whatever that number is, you basically say, hey, these are going to be the 15, 20, in this example, amount of players that we are going to place 1 through 15, 1 through 20, and no one else can place above whoever the bubble position is, right? So if the bubble position is 15 or 20, let's say that person's total score is 20 million. No one can score above 20 million, therefore it being fixed, right? Meaning that these 15 to 20 players are going to get these positions and the rewards or the amount of sculptures from commanders that come with it. Now let me break down exactly why I truly believe in running fixed events for your MGEs. This does not mean that you have to run everything fixed. I do believe in a healthy amount of, it's good to let people flex, right? However, I do not believe that people should be flexing 24/7 like 7-Eleven, because it is just an ultimate waste. And I'm going to explain a little bit more here. If you haven't already caught on why it is really a waste, I'll dive a little bit more into that. I truly believe running kind of a 3-1 split for your MGEs, right? Because you typically, unless it's changed recently, you usually would have 4 MGE cycles per commander or per commander's rotation. So if you're running 4 cycles, you do a 3-1 split, right? Meaning you run 1 free-for-all, then you run 3 fixed. So you can do 1 free-for-all in the beginning, then do 3 fixed. You can do 1, 1, 2. You can do 1, 3. You could do 3, 1, right? 2, 1, 1. However you want to do the rotation. Now, you can also make the argument for running a full fixed. I have no problem with kingdoms that want to run a full fixed. I actually believe that's truly if you're really talking about the most efficient way to do it, that's how you would do it. The reason I like doing it 3-1 is because it can be hard to swallow, and the amount of effort you would have to go through to set appropriate expectations from day one and really take the time to do that. If you have the time, fantastic, right? I'll tell you, your kingdom will already be farther ahead if you do it that way. And you're able to get to the absolute most ideal situation, which is a full fixed where you're running nothing but fixed events, then yes. However, I like to try and compromise a little bit, and run a 3-1, at least in the beginning, until you can get to a point where maybe you can transition into a full fixed where you're just doing nothing but that all day long. The reason why I say this is because if you, as an example, say, hey, right, we're going to set the cap, and this is something that some kingdoms will do, they'll set a threshold cap. And maybe the threshold cap is, hey, 10 million points or 15 or 20 million points is the overall points that no one can go above, with the exception of the people who we've chosen that we're going to place in these fixed positions, 1 through 15, 1 through 20, and they're the ones who are going to get the commanders, right? Which means no one can go above that. The reason why running fixed is smart to do is because you can allocate the amount of points that a player accumulates over the event, arguably to the amount of money that they have spent, right? Not to say every single point is accumulated based on money, but usually once your points get past a certain amount, you know these people are spending money on MGEs. And so to me, it's extremely wasteful when you see very high point amounts, when really the idea, because you have to assume this. At minimum, you have to assume that the average player is going to do their daily minimum tasks, right? So you get, I think it's 3 to 4 tasks per each stage. So you have to assume players are going to gather resources. Players are going to attack barbarians, right? So just passively by default, they're going to accumulate points. What you have to figure out is what are the minimums, right? What's the average amount of points that the average player is consuming or accumulating, and then you're kind of setting your thresholds based on that. So if the average free-to-play or the average player, let's just say, is accumulating 10 million points as an example, by the time the event ends, then you wouldn't set the threshold at 5 million. That doesn't make any sense. You're just going to be in for more headaches, having to manage and micromanage and settle disputes and people and complaints all day long in your kingdom. You don't want that headache. It's better to then set the cap at something like a 15 million, like a 20 million, right? Whatever a little above the average is that you can realistically maintain. So that way you're reducing the amount of overall resources and overall finances, money, that is being spent on the event. Meaning that now your spenders are able to get these commander sculptures, right? Ideally, and we'll touch on this in a moment, right? But the people who, let's just say the people who need the commanders sculptures the most are able to invest the littlest to no amounts of money and or resources that they absolutely need to in order to get these, right? So they're getting more while doing less for it. That's the point on how to take advantage of this event. And then that kind of leads into the big question of, well, what about the free-to-play? What about the people who just want to participate in the event? Let me explain something to the free-to-play out here, right? In case you haven't had a dose of just realism slapped in your face, like Cat Williams did in, what was it, Friday? I can't remember, right, where he did the pimp slap with all the powder. Let me do that for you, but I'm going to do it in a very nice and just professional way. This is a spenders event, right? For all intents and purposes. It does not mean to say that free-to-play cannot place well in this event and they cannot utilize these commanders. But what you have to understand is that in order to utilize a commander, you have to factor in a few things. You have to factor in max VIP level, max Academy tech, max Alliance tech, equipment, right? Max equipment that you're able to get. Gosh, what else am I 100,000 bucks as I'm missing something here. VIP, I think I covered a good amount there. And then, right, being able to train, right? So being able to have max legendary commanders, right? So that would obviously be the other one too as well, because you can obviously get legendary sculptures from other ways if you spend outside of just being free to play. So being able to do that, right? So and then on top of that, having commander versatility or diversity in commanders, so you can maximize pairings and test as well. That's obviously really important to do. And then probably the last one, maybe this is 6 or 7, is that because you spend, you're able to replenish troops a lot more. So you're able to use the commander more on the field in rallies or open field than a free-to-play would, who might be out there in KVK for a day fighting, whereas someone who's spending can be out there on the field for a week or two, right? And that or even longer, right? Just giving an example. And so that means that they're able to run more rallies than someone who's a free-to-play, or they're able to fill more rallies, or they can run more open field effectiveness. It just means that they're able to maintain and sustain themselves longer. It's nothing against free-to-play or people who don't spend, but you just have to understand the realisms of what can you do and what can you not do, right? And once you understand that, you have a better idea on how to approach and how to feel about MGE when you're in a kingdom that's running fixed and they're telling you, hey, please don't go over this. They're not saying, hey, please don't compete. The fact is that if you're free to play, you should not be spending all of your resources and investing into MGE. You should be doing it into other events. Just as one example, I would rather invest a bigger portion of my resources into something like strategic reserves than I would invest them into MGE, just to name one event that I'm still going to get great ROI on from investing. Arguably, I'll probably get more rewards based on the same amount that I'm going to invest in MGE just from that one event, right? And there's other events, obviously, that you can do, and you can spread out your investment compared just to all-inning it on an MGE. So yeah, man, I actually feel really good about this video. Wow. I hit a lot of really good points. I probably should have came up with an outline. That probably would have helped a little bit. But, we're kind of just doing it off the top of the dome. I hope, if anything, that this video does a good job on explaining and really doing a deep dive into everything about MGE for Mightiest Governor. Why is it exactly all of these factors that go into it make it so that the event is just more beneficial for ideally spenders? I mean, you can kind of dress it up however you want. And as I said, right, if I leave you with one last thing, I will say this. And I touched on it briefly earlier. It doesn't mean that free-to-play cannot place well in these events. It's just you have to prioritize. If you're able to get however many people that want to use a specific commander first, like just throughout the first 3 MGEs, and then the last one you're like, okay, well, hey, all of us have the commanders that we need, then okay, then go ahead and run a free-for-all or a semi-fixed, right? It just depends on how many players are going to be using the commanders. Do they need more sculptures? Are they going to be able to max it out? I mean, there's obviously factors that go into it, especially, just depending on, again, a few things. But even if you were to run all fixed events, right, it is just one of those things. I hope that my hope really is that when free-to-play watch this video, their takeaway is, damn, dude, boss really just explained everything I need to know, and I don't really have the right to feel anyway. Like, I understand now why kingdoms run MGEs this way. And you know what? I'm not going to care about investing resources into MGE because I'm going to invest them into other events so I can get better return on investment from my resources. And if anything, I hope the takeaway for spenders is, man, finally someone was able to explain things to the general public in a way that made sense and was eloquently put to where I'm going to now share this with, anyone and everyone that I can, so that way people can get a really good understanding on how just make MGE your BZ, if you know what I mean. Like, just really, stick it to the man, basically, is where I'm going with that. Yeah, got to keep it PG for the fam. Okay, that is it for me. So, again, I would love to hear your thoughts, right? Is what I'm saying making sense? Are we connecting? Do you feel the same way? For kingdoms out there, right? Have you guys tried to take time to explain to your player base within your kingdoms what I've explained in this video? Have you attempted before? What was the reaction? How did you do it early? Did you do it late? I would really love to know, right? If you're free to play, for any of you that have kind of come to this realization, if you're already at this point, what events do you invest in, right? Compared to investing into MGE, do you just do your minimum task rewards and then you move on, how I do, or I guess how I used to do? Do you save up for 6 months or a year, then you just do an all-in invest so you can, enjoy the flex, so to speak? And if you're a spender, again, what's your view on this, right? Do you appreciate the breakdown? I'd love to hear any and all thoughts. So again, please let me know in the comments down below. That is it for me. As always, until next time, I'll catch you later.